I said, I don't need all the rent that the market dictates I should be getting. I just need you to make sure you're making enough money so you don't want to leave. And that's my primary goal here.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Joel Irway here, and welcome to another very special episode of Experts Unleashed. And today I have a very special guest, Dan Taylor, and we are going to be diving into a segment of the world of acquisitions. Acquisitions is an area of interest that I have been studying a bit more over the past 6 to 12 months, mainly because I have been exposed to various influencers and various, gurus per se that have been teasing around the idea of using acquisitions to grow your company. So anyway, my guest here today, Dan, is somebody that I met through a speaking engagement that I had in San Diego a few months back at Roland Fraser's event. And Roland is big into acquisitions. It's it's one of his core strategies that he teaches. And so Dan and I got to connect, and Dan is an expert in his own right in a very specific targeted type of acquisitions. And so I wanted to have him on the podcast here today to dive into this topic a little bit more, because I am very, very green in it. And so I'm going to use this as an opportunity to learn more, and we'll share it with you. So Dan, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks very much, Joel. It's always a pleasure to have a chat with guys we meet along the journey. And it's just strange you mentioned Roland. We had him on our podcast 2 days ago. It was fantastic. We had a blast talking about deals and structures and strategies and all that kind of thing. And you're quite right. Roland right now has got deals live from 3 million in turnover to 4.3 billion and everything in between. So that's pretty cool. He does it a very specific way. And we've been in the acquisition space. We're talking about Roland about the 1980s, leverage buyouts and that kind of thing. We've both been in the game for a while. He's done a hell of a lot more deals than me. But we've done over 100 million in, deals. And we love it because we're helping people, get to across the bridge to their land, wherever that might be. We're very specific. We target businesses that have been around for a while, kind of boring businesses, boring businesses have been around for a while, engineering, care, healthcare, that kind of thing, businesses that actually do stuff. They have physical assets. So we target companies that are doing over £1 million in profit. They have some commercial real estate or land. They usually trade from that commercial real estate. And they've been going for about 25 years. They're typically 60-year-old. And they've got no debt, asset heavy, cash rich, and they've never thought about the exit, which is incredible. Now, why is it incredible? Because if you're 60 years old, then your life expectancy is kind of 82. So you've kind of got 20 years or years left kind of thing. And how many of those years, if you're lucky, are very good, high quality ones? So our biggest thing is to educate these baby boomers that you're sitting on, acres of diamonds. You're sitting on a gold mine. Why don't we unlock that gold mine, release you to do whatever it is the thing you want to do while you still can over the next 5 to 10 years. And we'll do that in a very tax efficient way, in such a way that you'll have a great time. Your kids will have a great time, but your kids' kids will also have a great time. So we look at a kind of holistic 360-degree approach to their tax structuring on the way out. And, I love it because we're releasing people from the chains and mundanity of everyday business when they didn't realize they had an option, which is incredible.
Dan, let me jump in real quick. So one of the things that there are different types of buyers and deal makers in acquisitions, right? When you are acquiring these businesses, are you acquiring them to operate them, or are you flipping them or packaging them up to another buyer? Like, what is your strategy with acquisitions?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. And hopefully there are no business sellers listening to this podcast, because we're going to release some secrets, some insights here. And if you're ever trying to grow wealth, if you're ever trying to create multiple passive income streams, or capital events. So in life, you need both. You need multiple passive income streams, and you need capital events now and again happening in your life to have a happy life and to do the things you want to do. And acquisitions, I have never seen a single strategy that can create such quantum leaps in wealth as acquisitions. There just is not a thing out there. In fact, Warren Buffett was, he asked at one of his AGMs recently, if you started again, Warren, you haven't got your 60 odd billion or 100 billion, whatever he's got, what would you do? He said, I would buy businesses. Because somebody that's been trading for 25, 50, 100 years, one we're looking at right now was set up just after the First World War by the grandfather. It's incredible. The real estate around it is incredible. So imagine somebody that's been trading with all that experience for all those years, decades we're talking about, and you can walk in and take that over without the decades and decades of work. Yeah. That's why acquisitions are like kind of running a marathon, but it's kind of like picking up the prize and only running the last 10 yards. Yeah. So you're taking advantage of all the assets, the hassle, the stress, the blood, sweat, and tears that families and generations have put into something, and then you're releasing them from the chains while you take it on. But we don't take it on to run it. Yes, we do run it in the interim. We're bringing a chief exec or an MD to do that. But our plan is this. Our scheming plan is the following. We buy the whole thing as a package, commercial and the business together, so that the company or the SPV, or as you call it, LLC over there, may own the business and the property. Our then job is to split the property from the business and do something called a sale and leaseback. Now that's just fancy words for saying we create a long-term lease back to the business. So even if we buy at 5 times multiple, as soon as we do that, this part over here is worth 12 to 15 times. So immediately we create this financial engineering that adds significant value, and we bring in investors to invest in the commercial real estate on 25, 30-year terms. So they're happy as Larry, because why? They're not doing anything. It's completely armchair, hands-free. They are virtual landlords, and they're getting quarterly dividends. So they're happy. Over here, if we engineer the deal right, we've got a business for free that a couple of generations has probably took decades to put together. Because of that financial arbitrage, the way two things are done, how a business is valued, how commercial property investments is valued, we get that massive arbitrage. Therefore, we can fund the commercial over here and use, predominantly, we nearly end up with a business for free. No debt, unencumbered, free, which is pretty cool. And then what do we do with the business? What we do with the business then, because we want to add a massive value to the investors, because we're all about protection of capital, and I am the investor's fiduciary. I look after them like they are my brother, my mother, my father. So what do we do then? The plan is to sell the businesses to a PLC, to a big company, a strong company. Why do we want to do that? Because as soon as we sell the business to them, fantastic, we create a capital event for ourselves, but more importantly, we've basically increased the value of the commercial because we've got a huge tenant on the lease now. So we're de-risking it for the investors and increasing the value at the same time. So there's kind of a holistic win-win for the three guys in the deal, the business seller, the investors, and ourselves. Yeah.
So if I were to summarize this, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm probably going to be wrong. Essentially, so you target profitable businesses that also own their own commercial real estate. So their property is probably on that commercial real estate that they own or attached in some sort of way. Like that's criteria number 1. Criteria number 2, they have to be doing at least £1 million in profit per year. And essentially what you do is, if I were to simplify this, you split that one business up into 2 businesses, and now you're leasing the property to the business. Correct. So like that, now they're renting from business B. Business A is the operational side. Business B is the real estate side. So you create that lease agreement together, and then why would you bring on investors? This is where, if you own both assets now outright, why would you bring on investors for the real estate portion if you own that?
Well, with the business sales, we give them 2 things. We give them a significant capital chunk up front, and then we pay them for the rest of their life, if that's the choice, or 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever works for them because it's a bespoke package we do for them, whatever. It's got to be unique to their circumstances.
Yep.
So why do we bring on investors? Because in any commercial real estate investment transaction, you get debt, you get equity. Yeah. We get debt from the bank, pension funds, that kind of thing. And then we like to bring in the equity from people like ourselves, normal people that have, 1, 2, 3, 500,000 in the bank or in their pension fund that's sitting there doing nothing and it's eroding with inflation. So we help them get that to work, transfer it from fiat currency into bricks, old school bricks with long-term leases to very profitable businesses. Why? So they can grow their capital. So they have more capital in retirement than retirement.
Got it.
You never want to run out of capital in retirement. So we help investors accelerate their lifestyle in retirement. We help business sellers get to retirement and enjoy that, the last 5-10 years of really good, high quality life. And obviously we have fun too.
Got it. So the part that I was missing was you still have debt from buying the business. So you're taking out debt to go purchase that initial business, and then the investors are there to kind of help finance the deal. Is that correct?
Yeah. So every commercial property, when we split into two businesses, one business into two, business on the left, commercial real estate on the right. The commercial real estate, we would probably go 50% from the bank, 50% from investors, which makes it super safe, because we're not into taking big, scary plays or bets or investments. We're looking to that this money from investors are people's pensions. You can't mess with people, and I see myself as a kind of fiduciary or looking out for them, or the protector, because I've seen what big banks do. And this is about cutting out the banks. And as soon as we scale the investor club, we won't need the banks. We will basically fund the whole thing, commercial real estate, from the investors. 50% they'll have towards debt, 50% to equity. They will be first charge, only charge. They will be the guys. I'll be looking out for them because I'm in this for the long run, not for one deal. And I cannot afford to have any deal go nothing apart from stellar. So you really got to, if you have investors in any deal, you look after them first, second, and third before you look after yourself. Yeah.
Makes sense. So Dan, how did you get into this? Have you always been into acquisitions? Were you in real estate originally and then kind of like migrated your way into this? But like, I'm always curious, like the journey of how you got into this world.
Yeah, that's a few years ago now. And we did a number of businesses in the late 80s. And we kind of opened one business, the next business, the next business. And we kind of went through a period of failing forward, learning lessons, as I say, university of businesses. And until we eventually, I got into real estate, did some commercial property to residential plays, didn't really enjoy that. And then we opened this business and we took on our first mentor, who just happens to be Jay Abraham. Yeah. And Jay Abraham, we met him at a two-day event in London in 1995 or something, 94. And he's coming on our podcast in June. What an awesome guy he is. Smart as they come. And so anyway, we went down to this 2-day event, cost an absolute fortune, £6,000, which is a lot of money back then, still a lot of money now. But with that one strategy, we bought this rundown, distressed business again that owned this commercial property, bought the whole thing, and we started a business in there. Cost us 150,000, 700 square feet. And a year and a half later, we sold it for 750, making 600,000 profit, all due to one strategy from Jay Abraham. We turned £6,000 fee, an event fee. Who says, events are expensive? We turned a $6,000 fee into £600,000 in a year and a half. And then, so that was our first kind of win. And from there, we started thinking, that wasn't too bad. Perhaps we should do it again.
And so was he the one who gave you that idea of splitting?
No. He gave me the idea of doing lumpy mail, direct mail to.
Got it.
Yeah. So we did lumpy mail, direct mail to customers. The thing was so profitable, it was ridiculous. And we sold that. What we didn't know at the time was this splitting the business from the commercial. And we left £500,000 on the table because we didn't know that strategy. So we could have made, instead of 600, 1.1. But, there's the power of information. There's the power of little nuggets, that you find out from here, there, and everywhere. These don't advertise, you don't just walk into these things. That one single thing really made a lot of difference, and we didn't know it then. So we left a lot of food on the table for the next guy, and that's fine because we were happy. So after that, we started buying more businesses. And we started again kind of after we sold that in 97. And by 2005, we kind of had 30 businesses. There were just under 300 employees. We're doing a lot of turnover, 3 million profit. Things were good. And then we did, obviously, along the way, we learned numerous strategies, one of which was splitting the business from the commercial. And we got to about to be, worth business with the commercial into one LLC, and it was worth 21.4 million of pounds. I don't know what that is dollars, but it's all the same. Pounds, dollars, it's all the same. 21.4 million. Then we did that separation. We split the business from the commercial. Guess what the 21.4 went up to? Just by doing it. We never bought anything else, never bought any more commercial property, no more businesses. On one day, we increased the value from 21.4 to 29.8.
Wow.
An 8.4 million gain through, I call it reams of gold, a ream of paper. Do you know that? 500 sheets. And basically 2 reams of paper, a big lawyer's fee and a big valuation fee. And we increased the value by 8.4 million from 21 to 30, basically. This is how powerful this strategy is. If we did it on the smaller deal, one unit, one business, we'd have made another $500,000. But on a larger one where you've got a string of businesses, then you can see how kind of incredibly powerful it can become. Now, on the deal we're looking at just now, there's a number of commercial properties in there, and the owner wants to get to retirement. He's had enough. He's done it too long. He's held the baton and he's run the race and he's done amazing, but he wants to hand that on now. And by separating the two, with the commercial over here, we get investors in, some money from the bank. We'll have the business without any debt whatsoever. And then the next plan is to sell that business to a large player in that sector to increase the value in the commercial property further. Yeah.
How many, Dan, how many of these deals do you do a year? Like how many are you looking to do per year while, you've got X number of businesses that you technically own and are running? Like what does the portfolio look like?
Well, I'm looking, to be honest, right now we've done about 41, over 100 million. And the game plan right now is just to get the next one done. We've got 69 on the board, 69 businesses on the board. But as soon as one gets to a certain level, I forget everything and tell them all I'm on one. And when I'm on one, I'm on it. That I only do one deal at a time because, it's a deal like these require 150% commitment, or they just don't happen. You have to be the conductor of your professional team, drive it over the line. But on the finish line, my goodness, it can be not too shabby. It's like doing, you can have a lifetime worth of wealth created on the completion of one acquisition.
And so once you complete one of these, right? Do you typically, what is the standard operating procedure? Like if you're buying this business from somebody, does the seller stay on and help run it for X number of months or years? Is there like I don't know if it's called an earnout or what, but what does that typically look like with the seller? Because I assume you guys can't just come in and operate it just like they were for the past 20, 30, 40 years, right?
Yeah, well, on this one, that we're hopefully, fingers crossed, touch wood and all that kind of stuff, because I love this business, which is a really bad sign because, that's an emotional, psychological thing. I love this, but I can't believe I just said that. I'm now talking myself into the deal where to a certain extent, you've got to be detached, and then just analyze it. And then obviously at a certain point you jump in. But in terms of the process, is we would buy that, he would stay in with 25%, yeah, and then we would have an option on that 25%. And basically, so we've got, the staging of this. You buy the whole thing simultaneous to buying, split the commercial out, create that sale and lease back, which is just a long-term lease. At the same time, the owner keeps 25% stock in the business, and he gets a deferred payment over a number of years that we agree, depending on how much we paid for the commercial. So he gets a huge lump sum, income paid for years, and 25% left in the business that we have an option to buy back off of. And that retains him in the business. He's got a stake in there. He's committed. Sometimes we don't need that because we have the expertise to do it ourselves, or we have someone on hand that can, parachute them in and run it. But I would never be I've ran businesses before. It's not my forte. And in life, you really want to stay in your lane, your zone of genius kind of thing. And for me, it's deal structuring and, getting the deals done, getting them to the table, meeting the vendors and getting it over the line kind of thing. And then I would bring someone else in to run it, a partner or existing owner, and then have an agreement with them that, okay, over 6 months, you're going to have somebody shadow you. And then after that 6 months, you're going to shadow them. And then for a period of time, if you think they're ready, they'll take the reins and you'll just check in with them kind of thing. Because he's been in the game 30 years. He has forgotten more in this sector than we'll ever know.
Yep.
So invaluable. But we really want him as an advisor because he's supposed to be going to semi-retirement as fast as possible. And we might get him there in 6 months, might be 9 months, But my goal is get him to semi-retirement. So he's an advisor, and we've already got an MD in the company. So shouldn't be much of an issue, to be honest. So he should be there with seeing things, looking at the forest, not being in the forest, coming up with great ideas, helping with acquisitions, that kind of thing. How can we grow this to make your 25% worth more than the 75% we'll just give you? Yeah.
Yep. Makes total sense. That always hung me up. And it was such a little factor that, when you buy businesses, I always worried oh, does the owner just go away? And, that would be horrible in probably most instances. But anyway, so there's my grade 1 knowledge question that I had to get out of the way because it was scratching.
A lot of people that buy businesses, that's the first thing they want to do. They want to get rid of the business, but they're more so, how do you put it? They're more so wanting to buy a job. I don't want a job. My job is deals, helping people get to their beach, whatever their beach is, and, more deals. I don't want to do many deals. I'm only looking for a handful of really core businesses at any one point in time. And I might do 1 a year, might do 5 a year. But we have 69 on the board just now. 69 on the board means we talk to every single one. We've done our data scraping, we've done our direct mail, we're doing our outbound campaigns. We've actually spoken to these people. 69 of them are at that stage. And the one common theme for all of the 69 is, now these already meet our KPIs, £1 million profit, commercial property, yada, yada, yada. None of them have an exit plan. And they're 60, and they've never thought about an exit plan. They just think, and they have an option. Because they're in the forest, all they're doing is week to week, make sure they're maintaining whatever it is they want to maintain. They've never stopped to smell the roses and think, how much value have I actually got in this business? What could I achieve from a sale? How could I, extract that tax efficiently? And how could I set up a legacy for, number one, how can I have more money than I need for retirement, a capital sum, and leave a legacy for the kids and the kids' kids and the kids' kids' kids? Is that even possible? And nobody thinks like that. And why should they? Because they're just doing their doing, and they're amazing at what they're doing. It just, I do what I do, and everyone for their own, So we help awaken them and create awareness about there are options. You're sitting on millions. You are sitting on a gold mine. Let's extract some of the gold. And, those 5 to 10 years of great quality life years you have left, what is it that you really want to do? Because you can do it now. You don't have to wait.
What is the typical sales cycle like for one of these businesses? From the time that you identify a potential, one that meets your qualifications, to your outreach campaign, to conversations, to ultimately, okay, pushing it over the finish line. I mean, in my mind, I came from, my background was in commercial heating and cooling sales. A lot of times, some of those projects, they could be a 2-year long sales cycle. I mean, is that really kind of like what we're looking at is that a similar sales cycle that we're looking at here?
Well, the one that that we're quite keen on, a lot of commercial property, very good business, 2.5 million EBITDA, great expanding, demographically expanding sector, i.e. people are getting older, they dovetail into this healthcare sector. It's an incredible sector. How long did that take? We called them in March, phone call in March, and, we're in a week's time, we'll be in the depths of financial analysis and structuring the deal to make sure it works for him, works for us. And then we're so that could be into legals potentially in June, say July, say completed, the end of Q3. So that's not a long time. That's kind of, what is that? 3 to 6 months. But that's quite a good one. I've had one that's took 2 years. But it was a 12.25 million acquisition that had, a Cayman Islands offshore company, a South African owner, an Indian owner, and a Swiss owner. My goodness, that was a nightmare. So I would never suggest you do that kind of thing. Try and keep it simple. I would never do that deal again. Why? Because part of our KPIs is 1 majority shareholder and 3 maximum shareholders that make up the vote. Yeah. Any more than that, not interested in. It's too much hassle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's fascinating. I mean, there's so many ways to make a living in this world. And part of the goal of this podcast is just to scratch the surface and try and uncover as many different ways as possible of how people make their living. And there's, from being a deal maker to being a facilitator to, I mean, you name it, the possibilities are endless. I got out of the commercial heating and cooling game because, number one, the sales cycle was too long. And number two, sometimes we just had to deal with too many decision makers. So I totally hear you. Like when you're looking for your 1 majority shareholder and, 2 or 3 partners, after that, it's totally not worth it to engage in a sales conversation because everybody's got to sign off. And it's just man, what a hassle. But so I hear you there.
That sector that you're in, although it's a long cycle to make a sale, it's a great sector to roll up and buy. To buy companies in that space, and you're buying them at kind of 3-4 times. You buy 6 together, and you're selling it 6-7 times.
It just happened in my local market. We had a roll-up company come through and swallowed up almost all of the competitors, where they've almost bought a monopoly and merged them into one. It's not technically a monopoly, but man, they're
manipulating the prices, which means
they completely went from being not even in our market to being the top dog overnight. I mean, it's a case study in its own. It might be something that you may want to study or at least look at, but it was fascinating. They completely shook up the market and the industry in our local geographic area. But I was talking to some friends that were still in the space because they now work for them.
Right.
And I'm like, so what happened? Is well, basically they just bought every competitor. And I'm like, how did they let that happen? But you know what? That's why deal makers are there. Deal making is a very valuable and a very, very specific skill set. I've talked to deal makers in the past and I've studied deal makers. I'm like, man, they're unique. I mean, they have a skill set of being able to speak to what everybody wants and getting everybody on the same page and everybody a seat at the table and making everybody win. And that's a very, very unique skill set. It's something that I'm sure you probably, if you're the deal maker, that's probably something that you have in your repertoire. I can totally see Roland as that skill set as well.
Yeah, well, I just like to think about the other person first, and think what is really, really important to them and how can I deliver that in a way it still works for me. But think about yourself second. You always got to be humble and come from a point of view of service. That's the key thing, and never allow well, ego kills all deals,
Right.
It absolutely does. You've got to kind of, if you're in the middle of a deal, like today, I was just on the phone with a national brand, big, massive company, and we're trying to negotiate a new lease. And their agents on the thing, I'm in the thing, my agent's on the thing, and in the Zoom. And I said to the chat, I said, look, what's really important to you? Let's have an honest, frank, open conversation. This doesn't have to last 6-9 months. We can do this today. We can do this now, right here, right now. I can help you get what you want. Hopefully I get a bit of what I want, but I don't need everything. And I said, because, I see landlord and tenants more like a partnership. And I would rather, create a long-term relationship with you as a partner, as opposed to try and get the maximum rent. I don't need the maximum rent. I don't care about the maximum rent. I care about you making great profits in this site. Why? So you're there for life. I want you there for life, and I want you to be there, and I want you to, know and see me as an incredible landlord, but as a partner first. And I told him a story about this other national brand we have. They've got 1,000 restaurants, and I said, when we did a deal with these guys, I just says, let's just agree on the rent reviews now, today. The lease is for 30 years, and I know what the rent's going to be in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 25 years, 30 years. I said, I don't need all the rent that the market dictates I should be getting. I just need you to make sure you're making enough money so you don't want to leave. And that's my primary goal here. So where are you? Where's your de minimis and maximus? And let's cut a deal somewhere in between. And the two agents are absolutely furious. Why? Because year 5, 10, 15, 20, there's no rent reviews, which means there's no fees for them. So they're not happy, but my partner's happy, who is the tenant,
Yep.
It's really about that. It's coming from a point of view of service, of, looking out for them first. Yeah, and if that meets with your needs, great, awesome. You're never a mile and miles away. And I always try and do that.
From a strategic level and like from a theoretical level, that makes total sense, right? Look in terms of, what they're seeing through their eyes first before your needs. And then it now comes down to like the art of communication, because you might try to do this. Like I've fallen victim to this, and when it comes to deal making and whatnot, I'll be the first to admit that I lack that skill. It's something that it's a work in progress for me, but then it comes down to the art and communicate. Are you communicating that clearly? Are you communicating in a way that doesn't raise their guard or actually lowers their guard and, allows you to have other lines of communication? But anyway, that's I digress a little bit, but yeah.
See, in a nutshell, the art of acquisition, we've got a podcast called The Art of Acquisitions, but just, because acquisitions is, science and art. It's really in that finer nuances, because we're humans. You're dealing with humans. You're not dealing. Yes, you've got to spreadsheet everything, but at the end of the day, you're dealing a deal with another human. But there's nothing complicated about it. It's just what I said. It's about knowing your parameters and then asking how you can help the other guy first. The acquisitions, though, how you structure acquisitions. If you can master one skill in life, and master how to structure acquisitions so there's no money coming out of your pocket and you're doing a massive service to other people at the table, while you're getting what you want as well, then, it's a thing that you can catapult your wealth, your income. You can create multiple passive incomes, streams, but more so you can create multiple passive income streams and capital events in your life. Why do you want a capital event? Go buy that silly stuff. Go buy those liabilities. Why do you want multiple passive income streams? Because you're being too stupid buying liabilities. Your multiple passive income streams will always be there to back you up. And for me, your capital should always be reinvested and live off the assets of the income. You never, ever live off your capital. It's just a big no-no, always have delayed gratification to create those passive income streams so that you can actually buy assets and replace your active income with passive income from assets and then live off that income kind of thing. And then you'll be safe forever. But master the art of acquisitions. It's incredible. But this deal, that we're working on right now that might take 6 months, which is a long time, I know, but is it a long time? Because when it's done, the kind of win when it's done is in the millions, literally in the millions. I hate to say numbers to brag, but it's just such a life-changing amount of money for people. If you don't know how to do this and you learn how to do this, one deal is all we need. One deal. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Dan, where can people learn more about your stuff? Where can they follow you? Yeah, I know you've got a podcast you mentioned. Where can they learn more?
Well, we've got a website for investors. It's taylorcapital.co.uk. That website is getting updated very soon for, two people, investors, business sellers, and then we're going to bring on a third one at some point after we do this deal. And it's for people who actually want to learn how to do acquisitions, how to find them, how to analyze them, how to structure them, how to get the tax right, because tax is everything. If you can help the other chap save, a significant more tax than he thought he was taking home, then that's a big value add. If you can do it on your side as well, huge. The good thing is you don't actually have to implement the tax strategies. You let your deal team do that, but you have to understand tax strategies. So when you see something, you can think, okay, that's going to help, add X to the bottom line. But really, taylorcapital.co.uk is where it all starts. We've got an investor club. We're going to have a website soon for business sellers. And then the third website, which is still going to be at taylorcapital.co.uk, will be for helping people, that could be business sellers. I don't want to sell. I want to do what you do and then sell it at a bigger price. It could be people trying to get into acquisitions. How do we get into acquisitions? How do we do it then? How do we structure? How do you analyze? And we're going to help people actually analyze live deals in the club. So it's an exciting space. taylorcapital.co.uk, taylorcapital.co.uk. And you never know, we might be having a chat at one of our live calls, because we do live calls.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll make sure to link that down in the show notes. It's taylorcapital.co.uk. Dan, it's been a pleasure, man. I learned a ton, and I know that our audience learned a bunch as well. And so this was a great crash course to get me reinterested in acquisitions again. So, Dan, I appreciate your time, man. Thank you, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, Joel, thank you very much. Always a pleasure, buddy.
Yeah. Take care.